Item number 3.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Chuck Walder, Geauga County Auditor's Office. I don't know how to follow the dog that came earlier, but I'll do my best to.
Well,
I'm just grateful ADP doesn't have smell-o-vision. So after being contacted by a resident, I was able to watch last week's session, and I observed a rather clandestine exchange between maintenance and the Board of County Commissioners that I wanted to address. I'm not exactly sure what all the cloak and dagger was about in that exchange with maintenance, but I want to clarify that I had raised a request of maintenance at a Board of Elections meeting, in a public meeting. It was not something that I pulled Glenn aside or maintenance aside and said, hey, let's move the building, huh? So kind of giving you the backstory. For almost 4 years, I, either virtually or in person, or a representative of mine, have attended Board of Election meetings. And we have invested as a group significantly in an attempt to move the mission down the field to have Board of Elections join the commissioners in this facility. And I'm happy that we accomplished that mission, but that came with a lot of investment. In the process of doing that, it was very clear at the onset of my meetings with the Board of Elections that they had some significant concerns about parking, especially during gubernatorial and presidential elections. And I mean, in those meetings, I know, Commissioner Brakey, you attended a few of them since you become a commissioner. And I think we walked out one meeting and you said, you know, everything they're asking for isn't unreasonable. And I think we all kind of went, yeah, parking is an issue.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely my big concern, particularly for next year.
Yeah. And you know, to the Board of Elections' credit, they have been persistent in that messaging. They've not been private about it. They've not kept it in confidence. They have been direct. And I personally appreciate their directness. It's hard to help somebody when you don't know what it is they want you to do. So in that meeting, in one of the meetings maybe a couple of months ago now, I mentioned to Glenn in the public meeting during discussion, has anyone considered, with the announcement of the new facility going in across the street, perhaps locating their parking space in a manner which we could also benefit from for overflow parking during these election cycles.
Yeah.
That was the spirit of the conversation.
Yeah.
It was not, let's move the building 300 feet X or Y direction. It was, let's open our minds up to opportunities before we have to spend additional tax money to build more parking spaces. I know we suffer from a lot of storage constraints with county vehicles being stored on the premise. Yeah. And that's prime location, especially during an election cycle. Yeah. A remote site would be a very small inconvenience to be able to house, you know, those kind of vehicles and equipment on a temporary basis during those windows of opportunity. So that was the intent of my inquiry. It was certainly not to undermine the authority of this board. But I understand if the temperature is not ripe for the board to consider that because they've already determined a different pattern. I get it. I have no dog in this fight other than to try to address concerns that have repeatedly been brought to the attention of all of us that I think will affect us when one way or another come time for an election, which is just around the corner.
Yeah, no, I think that's, I didn't quite understand what the request was last week, obviously, if that wasn't clear. Because there's 4 lots essentially across the street, and your suggestion, correct, is to use the lot we're already using for the youth center and just make sure that parking is perhaps convenient to this building, and perhaps we expand it beyond what you would typically need for the youth center to accommodate overflow parking, maybe long-term parking of some of those vehicles. I think that's a solution that makes sense. I mean, for me, I don't think it's an either or. Either do we expand the parking, like the contiguous parking at this building, or do we expand the parking at the youth center? I mean, I think it's like take everything on the menu, right? I think we're going to need all of that parking, particularly for the next presidential cycle. So, and I mean, I don't know when we're breaking ground on the youth center, but I think we got. It's not going to be done. That parking wouldn't be done for the gubernatorial election.
I agree. My worry, though, is as if history were to repeat itself, we sometimes get in a pattern of considering options after buildings are constructed.
Yeah, no, absolutely,
And
absolutely.
I'm just saying, this is an opportunity for us all to kind
Yeah.
of think again about it. And if we can restructure that parking a little bit to accommodate it, then why not? I mean,
Yeah, right.
it's going to never be cheaper than it is right now.
No, that's right. And it's a lot cheaper to build the parking lot bigger now than it is to do that in 2 years or 5 years. I mean, not even just the cost of inflation and
Exactly.
labor and so forth, but just, it's more efficient to build it bigger
Right.
From the onset. So
I just didn't want the delivery of the message to you to overshadow the intent of the message.
Yeah.
So that's why I felt it important to be here.
Well, I appreciate you coming out and clarifying that. I mean, I think, I take responsibility for how some of that went down last week. And I think we as commissioners can do a better job at times, perhaps, weeding out the substance of what gets on the agenda. I think Christie does a very good job, like being that gatekeeper for the procedure of what gets on the agenda. And, I'm obviously, Amy and I are newer here, and we're trying to figure some of that stuff out. So I think that's something that we can do better in the future to make sure that issues are ripe when they come before us and that we know the facts, we're not surprised.
I appreciate it. And I know
Yeah.
Board of Elections is here, so if you have questions about the intent, I'm not using them as my backup. I used the dog for that, which didn't go as planned, by the way. I mentioned to the dog warden, geez, everybody should bring a dog. And then after the event, maybe everyone shouldn't bring a dog.
Backpedal that,
Yeah, we'll kind of revisit that later. So I appreciate the time. I'm going to scoot back to Budget Commission meetings if that's
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks for coming in,
Thank
Chuck. I
you.
appreciate it.
We will make accommodations during the voting period.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely going to be a big conversation. But if anyone from the Board of Elections, you ladies, gentlemen, want to say anything?